Welcome back to the Outreach Project family. This is Josh.
This is Zach.
This is Elijah.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Guys, I'm so freaking excited.
Are you really?
Yeah. This is so weird.
Is this going to be controversial?
Gosh, I hope not.
I mean, if me and Josh are talking, there's going to be something controversial.
But I want you guys to be the ones in controversy, not me.
All right.
That's fair.
We can do that.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, so who are you? What do you do? What's your life like?
That's a great question. I'm Elijah. I work here at the church. I do a little bit of everything, but mostly I do some communication stuff. I do some social stuff, do some website stuff, like building a young adult web page, things like that. Help out on the worship team when they need that.
That's not paid. That's serving.
It's whatever, but it's
most of the week, so
it's a lot. It's a lot. Coming off of Easter, it's a lot, but it's all good.
Did you start that camera?
Yeah, dude.
I don't even know if we did.
We'll just double check it.
We'll double check. This is raw, man.
I think it started. I shut it off. I didn't remember.
Yeah, we're rolling. You guys even know that.
Yeah.
The last podcast I watched, you guys said that there was a live audience, but that has not happened now. So
it's not.
We warned them about.
I needed to bring a significant other for them.
You have to bring your own live audience.
Yeah.
Now.
Okay. Well, in version 2 of this, when I do a reappearance in 5 years, I'll bring a live audience.
That'd be sweet. More gray hair and.
This is the controversial stuff I'm talking about, guys.
That's
Just
okay.
got into the episode. Joining controversial.
That's okay. How was Easter preparation? What did that look like?
It was good. You guys came, I assume, right?
Yeah, you talked about it.
It's good. We always try to, with Passion Week, try to bring people along. Like you get into the flows and rhythms of life, and we try to bring some intentionality and slow down and kind of meditate on the week a little bit more. And so we had the experience out in the lobby, and that was pretty well attended. A lot of people.
Sweet.
Dropped off some prayers and interacted with that a lot. And I think that was kind of like double the people that interacted with that last year. So it's not about numbers, but that means that it's connecting with a lot of people and people are engaging. And obviously Good Friday was great. Easter was a blast. We had magic on Easter, so that was fun.
The resurrection is not magic.
But the resurrection, to be clear.
Yes.
Let's be clear on that.
That was the point.
Jesus did not do a magic trick. It happened.
Yes.
Oh.
I'm sorry you missed that yesterday, Zach. But it's not a trick.
I remember 6 weeks ago, Riley telling us that they were already preparing for Easter.
Yeah.
And we were like amazed that you guys prepared that far in advance for Easter.
Well, I'll blow your mind a little bit more. The hope is that we're doing that in January or December. Like, that's the hope. But
why is that? Like, why are Christmas and Easter such focal points? Besides the obvious, like, Jesus was born, Jesus died and rose again. But, like,
yeah,
why not every week?
It's a good question. It really is. What I think that we've found and what the church has found is that when those holidays come around, that people are just more open to, like, okay, maybe I'll check this out. That's not saying that people don't have questions or need hope other times of year, but for whatever reason, especially in Indiana in the wintertime when it's really, really dark for a whole lot of the day, people get seasonal depression. I get that from time to time. And it just affects their mood, and then they start to get down, and they're looking for hope. And so Christmas is obviously one of those. And then Easter, I mean, everybody, you could not be a church person, and you still know Easter and maybe even celebrate Easter just because it's so big. So it's one of those that we put a lot of effort into just because we know that there will be people for sure showing up and who need to hear hope. And so it's not that the other Sundays we don't prep for because those are equally as important, just as much as the day after Sunday is important. Like there's always an opportunity for somebody to find Jesus. And so, we prep a lot for Easter and Christmas, but and it takes a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an obvious question. Those are probably the two biggest attended church services of the year.
Mm-hmm. I think it's always cool coming into church on Easter Sunday or Christmas and seeing how full the parking lot is every year. It's really cool to see that.
But then you have to park in the back. You're like, but
that sucks when you're like, that's kind of cool that I have to park.
Right. The human side of you is like, man, could these people not be here? And then you
sucks more on Christmas when there's snow.
It's colder. It's colder. No, I was telling somebody today, my favorite moment from Easter was sometimes I just get to take my ears out. And the sound, the amount of volume that's coming back was so loud. And
Really?
So we just heard so many people singing. And that's harder when it's a smaller group, but when you get that volume in there, it makes it easier to lead because you can tell the engagement with the voices. So it was a cool moment. And being able to just like take the ears out and go, I hear it. It's awesome.
You're on worship team, clearly.
I am.
What's your role on that?
It's changed over the years. I've been here at First Church for 10 years on staff, and initially I was kind of paid to be on the worship team as like Holly's number 2, and then as she's gotten some more help, I've kind of shifted around a little bit. But I happen to be here, but we actually have a worship leadership team, and those are individuals that we've kind of selected who we've seen some potential in, not just to lead songs, but to lead just spiritually, either that be in the worship team or on a bigger scale. And so I'm part of that team, and really at that table, we're all equals. So, and Holly, I think, would say the same thing there. She's an equal with everybody else at that table, and we really value their input and their discussion. And if you guys have done things like encounters, like some of them have planned those, that's not just Holly anymore. So it's cool. It's a team that's able to lead in some interesting ways. Jackson's a part of that team, and Jackson is actually now doing a lot of helping Holly plan services on Sunday. And that's the dream. I think like being on staff, being involved in ministry, but having other people step up to the plate and go, no, I want to take a hold of this and take ownership in it. I want to do a podcast because I love the church and I want to get to know people. That means the world. And that's what helps the church thrive and grow more than anything.
Wow. Really well said. Are you
not used to that on the podcast?
Not from you, but
I get it.
No, just kidding. What's your favorite worship song? Like, what does worship mean to you?
Yeah, 2 questions. Two good questions. Let's do the worship song one first, because that one's a little easier. I think that answer will change any given week, because when a song hits and it connects in a different way, then that just becomes your favorite for a while. Yeah. And I really like Sunday is Coming. That's the one we just did at the end of service for Easter. I like songs more and more. What a Beautiful Name.
It is.
Does the same thing. I like songs right now that tell the story of God's people. And what a Beautiful Name does that. Sunday's Coming does that with the resurrection. I like those kind of songs because they're singable, but they remind you of the story. Some other songs they tell great truths, but they don't remind you of the historicalness of some of it. So I like those. That feels like I'm connected with a little bit more of the church as a whole throughout history rather than just the church present.
Yeah.
And then what does worship mean to me? That's
deep.
The ways that I practice it is deep. The ways that I practice it have changed over the years. And I think I'm still growing in my understanding of that. It's one of the misnomers of like being on staff or being involved in a church is then people go, you have the answers and you've got it figured out. But over these last 10 years even, I've grown a lot in what that is. So worship for me is anything that I do but then all recognize God within it and then give him glory. So the obvious grab for me is music. Music's the way that I express worship a whole bunch. But there are times that I'm drawn into worship, and it sounds crazy, but when I go to a restaurant and I have a meal and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. That's a worship moment for me. It really is. And being able to go, it's incredible that I can even like taste these flavors together and recognize how good God is inside of some of that in the everyday is something I'm growing in. But that's what worship is. Worship is just being able to take in a moment, take in God's goodness, and then go, God, you are so good because of this. And that I didn't used to be somebody who connected with nature and like recognized God in nature. And I know those people. And then we took a trip out to California and I went, I get all of this now. Like here it's cornfields, and cornfields don't do a whole lot for me.
And you're used to it.
You're used to it, but you go into a new environment or you see a sunset and it hits just right. And you're like, my goodness, God is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what worship is to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's step back a little bit. Let's get to know a bit of you, how you grew up, and then let's like transition that into how you got the job here at First Church. So from like growing up to high school, college.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. So I've shared parts of that, and I'm going to do an abbreviated version because it could get long. But growing up, I grew up in kind of like a more charismatic setting. But then my parents eventually got divorced, and that sent me on a spiral into, I was very angry as a child. I started to become physically violent and started to beat people up, and that got a little out of control. And so eventually got involved in the court system, probation.
Was this in Indiana?
This was here, yeah. This was Columbia City, yeah.
Columbia City. You grew up Columbia City.
I grew up Columbia City, yeah. Born and raised.
Good to know.
Born and raised.
CC.
So got involved in some of that, and actually there's people from this church. I got kind of put into an after-school program through the court system. And there are some people from this church that were a part of that and helping with some of that. And no, it is. And I'm still to this day grateful to know those people. And so seeing some of that influence and finding a safe space there, and then just given time, eventually got out of some of that. I remember one time I got sent away for a little bit and was kind of confronted with the reality of this could be my life moving forward. Like if I keep going down this path, jail is the option. And so I remember just sitting like in a bunk one night, confronted with that reality. And then I felt very much like that's when God became real to me. God met me in that moment and changed some things for me for sure. And so through time, got involved in church again. I rejected it for a long time because my thought at the moment was, if the Bible is true and if God wants all of these things, but my parents can't live that out, then why should I need to live any of that out too? So I kind of disregarded church. But through some persistence of some family members and people that I knew, got involved again. And that was slow going. But people talk about making your faith your own. Mm-hmm. And eventually I had to do that. That was making your faith your own. I know this is, here we go, controversy, is really kind of what deconstruction is now, right? It's trying to figure out what parts of what I was taught am I going to hold on to, and what parts am I going to let go because I need to relate to God in a certain way. And I was taught some damaging things as a kid about God. And so I needed to cut some of that out. And that's been a long process. I know I have gray hair, but that's 33-year-old me, is still in process with some of that, is rediscovering who God is all the time. And so eventually, really got sold out for the church again. My parents were a great example of that, of how to serve in the church, even from a young age. We were in the church building all the time throughout the week. VBS, they were decorating rooms. That was just a part of it. So once it became my own, I just dove headlong into it, and I went, okay, God, if this is real for me and you're real for me, then I'm selling out for this. Mm-hmm. And that didn't mean that I got the job here because of that. There's a long gap there. Eventually ended up getting married, finding a girlfriend who I married.
How old was?
I was 20 when I got married.
Okay.
She was 26, older women.
That's a common theme here.
Hey, it is what it is. So I was 20. It was pretty young, and that has its own set of circumstances too, and things that you got to work through. But we're going on. We just celebrated 12 years. So we got married in November. Okay. So November will be 13 years of that. But even through that, like, just did some everyday normal jobs that sometimes I wish I could go back and do again. At one point I was working in a warehouse, and I loved that job. I loved thinking about organizing and efficiency inside of some of that. And then I was a janitor for a couple of years. I was actually a janitor right before I got the job here. I was just cleaning some buildings, and that was some really good time of God teaching me what it meant to be a servant, because you go into a building, it's after hours. I never met anybody who was in that building. But I was like getting so angry at the messes that were made from these people I had never met. And I was like, what is this all about? And so for 2 years, I not literally washed their feet, but as I cleaned up after people and washed their feet. And that was a good refining process too. And I feel like that set me up then when I finally did come here and start working inside of the church. I felt like a lot of that was just setting me up to know what it means to serve people. And again, I'm still learning some of that. A lot of people think that what we do throughout the week is playing for Sundays, and that's definitely a part of it. But serving people means going to their weddings and their funerals, and it means going to their graduation parties, and it means staying an hour after a service because they have some questions and they just need some hope at the moment. So there's a lot of ways to wash people's feet other than the literal washing of feet. And so I feel like, my life leading up set me up to be here, and then I've been here 10 years. 10 years is a long time.
Has your role changed a lot throughout that 10 years, or has it been pretty much the same?
I think I've always done the same thing. I've always been the guy who knew how to. I went to school for graphic design. I never finished school, but I went to school for graphic design and really got into that. And so that's what I originally brought me here. Was they're like, we need somebody to do some video and some graphics and stuff. And that brought me here, and then it's really just kind of evolved from there. Website got added, so I learned those skills. Needed help in worship, so I helped with worship, and so I don't know that it's changed from the original, but there's been some additions and subtractions within it. But it's always kind of been that.
What was your first official title here? Just media?
It's always been communications director. Yep.
What's that mean?
Gosh, it's a great question. I go home.
Do you know what that means?
I go home sometimes, and Jolene, my wife, is like, I was trying to explain what you do at the church, and I couldn't do it. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I just help communicate information. And she's like, yeah, but do you give presentations? I'm like, no. What are your meetings like? And I was like, okay, so she doesn't even know.
Do you do the bulletins?
So part of it is that, right? Communications director is really just how does information get across different spectrums? So the bulletin. I've always done the bulletin. We used to do video announcements back in the day, so I would do some of those. We have a weekly email that goes out on Sunday mornings. That's the same kind of stuff. Again, website. So that's all communication related.
Yeah.
Making cards to hand out for Easter, all of that stuff. That's all kind of
a lot of digital communication.
A lot of digital. Yep. We do some printed from time to time. Fall Fest happens. People got to know about it. So that falls under me. Along with some other things.
Along with worship, meetings.
Lots of meetings sometimes.
Yeah. Do you like meetings?
I like meetings that have purpose. Look, every place falls into that. At some point, like the adage is like, hey, this could have been an email. And sometimes there are meetings. And you go, I think this could have been an email. That's everywhere, by the way. That's not just here.
Who's the biggest culprit of that?
Of calling meetings?
Yeah.
That could have been emails?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not even going to call out names on this. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody who would be that. Rob calls a lot of meetings. That's all I know. That's right. I'm coming for you, Rob. Rob's meetings are intentional, though. They are.
Are they?
They are. Yes.
Sweet. What do you do for fun when you get home?
Well, having two girls, I have two girls, Luna and Nova. Luna's 7, Nova's 3. They take up time when you get home. It's a good taking up of time. It's not like I got to deal with these two yahoos. And that's been sweet. It goes by. Everybody says it goes by really fast. It does. Luna's 7, and that blows my mind because it feels like we just had her. So they take up a lot of time. Every other Monday, I get together with some guys. We have board game night. I'm a huge board gamer. I have like a whole wall full of those. So I love that.
Favorite board game?
Favorite board game? Golly. That's the name of it.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. No.
You could have fooled us.
Again, any given day, that's going to be a different answer. But Catan's a classic, right? It
is.
It's so good. And the guy just died who designed that. He just passed away.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Klaus Teuber. Catan's one that you pull out with everybody. So I really do, I do like Catan. I think right now my favorite is probably a game called Ra. It's named after the Egyptian sun god.
Seems kind of idly.
Seems kind of like maybe you shouldn't play it as a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. It's an easy game, but and it's a classic. I think it's older than Catan.
Wow.
But I like it. But I also just got like a new edition of it at the house.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's some of the things I do for fun. Obviously, I do music for fun in the spare time too.
Have you guys, as a church or you personally, ever written a song?
No. Music was kind of an escape for me. So during a lot of that time period, my dad went to prison during a lot of my own turmoil. Music was kind of an escape, and I would just like play it for like 8 or 9 hours at a time and just kind of like get lost in it. And at that point, my mom had purchased a lot of equipment for me to like possibly write my own stuff. But I just don't feel like that's a strength of mine. Huh. And so I've never written anything. We did do a little bit of songwriting as a church at one point, but felt like that wasn't our strong suit, even collectively. So have I written a song? Parts of a lot of them. Yeah. But nothing that I'm like, yes, this is the song and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. What instruments do you play?
I mean, typically it's what you see on stage. I play guitar. Started out with electric guitar. Really got into electric guitar because I watched a Metallica concert on DVD, and I was like, I want to do that. And so Metallica is the reason that I play on the worship team.
That's kind of ironic.
It is. And I still love listening to some of their stuff, but that's what got me into electric. And then as a worship guy, like acoustic just comes along naturally too. And then my wife is a piano major, and so we have a piano in the house. I can play piano, but everybody on stage does it better than I do, but I can get by. Other than that, I attempted drums one time. Me, Landon, one of the drummers on the team, and Seth, one of the bass players, got together, and I was like, let me just try drums. Why not? Because I got really good at rock band drums, so I thought, well, that translates.
Obviously. And
turns out it does a little bit. Once Landon was like, okay, so this would be the yellow cymbal, this would be the, and then I was playing them, and I was like, actually, this kind of works. So if you feel like you're good at rock band drums, try real drums. It might happen.
Yeah. Those are your boys too, Landon and Seth.
They're good friends for a long time.
Yep.
We've been through a lot together. But when you have Landon as a drummer, like, I'm not going to step into that role. We'll let him do what he's good at.
You know how to play bass at all?
So good bass players, what I'm about to say doesn't apply to them. But if you can play guitar, you can play okay bass, because a bass is just the 4 strings rather than the other 2. So any guitar player can play a bass, but really good bass players, that's a whole different breed. Playing bass well is not something that guitar players can do. But yeah, I can pick up a bass and play the notes.
Would you say Seth is a really good bass player?
I make fun of Seth all the time, and everybody on the worship team knows that he is a very average bass player, and he would say that about himself.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
And no one could tell, like, in the crowd. Not crowd.
You gotta
What's
hit right
the
notes, man.
Congregation. Yeah, sorry. It's not concert.
We all use different terms. Sometimes it's audience, sometimes it's crowd. Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is not mess up the notes, and you're good. But then we get K-Boy up there, and he adds a little bit more flavor to it. And
he's better than Seth.
Oh yeah. Again, Seth, this isn't news to you or anybody else.
I mean, I knew it.
So
we all knew it. We're just saying the thing out loud.
So Seth, bad bass player. K-Boy, really good bass player.
I think that's what I said. Yeah.
How's Jennifer?
Jennifer?
Yeah.
Great. She's great.
Better than Seth?
Is she better than Seth?
Yeah.
We're not going to go there. Seth's a friend, and K-Boy's really good. I think. Oh no! I think Jennifer is just as good as Seth. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like you're trying to put on
it's not a competition,
guys. Show or
no.
It's the worship God.
Exactly.
That can look many different ways.
Look, every single Sunday at some point my voice cracks.
Oh, we know.
It just happens. Like we're all just getting by. And then we've got some really good people.
Are we allowed to laugh when your voice cracks?
What? Can
we laugh at you when your voice cracks on Sunday?
At this point, it happens so frequently that I would be more offended if people were trying to hide the fact that it happened.
That's true.
So, plus, I'm not looking at you. Well, you can laugh all you want to.
So when you're on stage and like a malfunction happens, how do you guys like react internally, or like what goes on behind the scenes after? Like,
well, it happens almost every week. Like something happens. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of a lot of people either playing music, or we have a lot of tech in the room that happens, projectors and whatnot. So something happens every week, and most of the time it's pretty good. If you ever, there are times where like the team will look at each other, and if you go, something felt weird there, and you see us look at each other, that's guaranteed something happened. Normally that means Holly came in at the wrong time.
I do notice, like no. This, like, someone messes up and Holly like comes in, saves the day every time.
It's we all pick each other up. We all screw it up so much.
What's your worst screw up on stage?
Mine?
Yes.
Starting a song in a wrong key.
Oh, that's fine.
Like singing or?
Yeah, it's fine until everybody else starts playing with you, and then you realize that they're like, I'm playing capoed, but everybody else isn't. And so then everybody else starts to play and you're like, something's wrong.
But then you have to stick with it or else it's weird, or no?
Or you just go, I'm sorry, we're going to start that song over.
I've definitely heard you do that before. I got a question. Do you like tune your guitar in the middle of service?
Yeah, all the time.
Because I definitely feel like click the foot thing on the ground and you're just like,
so there's
doing
two,
your thing.
There's 2 foot things, and electric players have this the most. But yes, tuning, because what happens is guitars are wood, and wood expands and contracts based on temperature. And what happens is we'll come in early on a Sunday and it'll be one temperature, but by the time second service hits, it's a different temperature in the room. And so things can flex a little bit. Plus, I'm terrible with changing my strings, and that will also make it go out of tune more. And depending on how much you get into it, there's a lot of factors there. So I'm just always making sure that it's in tune, because that's one of those things that if it's not, can just stick out. And the whole goal, like from the worship team on a Sunday, is we want to eliminate as many distractions as we can and not become distractions ourselves, so that people can meet with Jesus and not us. Mm-hmm. But as soon as we start to add some of those things in there, like a tuned guitar that might be tuned weird or wrong timing, like those things can have an impact on and pull people out of a moment. And so we're just trying to do our best to eliminate a lot of those. But so yeah, a lot of times I do tune in between songs, especially if I'm like, something sounds off and it's probably me. But then the other one is a lot of times with electrics, there's just delays that you set. And so there's a click going in our ears, and we're just trying to set the tempo to that. There's a lot that happens in our ears that you guys don't hear. There's a lady who goes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
I'm going to get an earpiece next Sunday just to listen to what you guys listen to.
Ashley was like, what goes on in your ears? And I'm like, a whole bunch of stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Riley up in the booth, or whoever's up in the booth that Sunday, they can talk to us through the ears. Thank goodness they don't do it a lot. But
I would totally mess with you.
That's why you're not up there.
Yeah, we
have a vetting process for who's allowed to do that.
We'd get kicked out.
Probably.
That's why we have a podcast. We can just free will ourselves.
You guys can do whatever you want to.
Yeah. So, a little bit more serious. As you've worked here, how have you grown in Christ?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, it's been 10 years. Mm-hmm. I think the most valuable thing to my faith, if I have the liberty to rephrase that a little bit, the most valuable part of my faith growing in the last 10 years is being able to sit with other people and talk about things. Pastors and people who work in church aren't exempt from having questions. And some of the most meaningful times that I've had in just kind of developing is being able to ask questions with people who are all at the same place. And, you know, I don't think the same way that I did 10 years ago when I started at 23. That's not saying that the way that I think now is right and that I was wrong then. But as I've grown and gotten older, some things that I used to get like really, really riled up and die on some hills, and those things kind of, you realize that those aren't worth dying for anymore. And you're really making mountains out of molehills, and I'd rather just fight for the things that are valuable. And that's different for everybody, but being able to do some of that, and honestly, being inside of a church and just seeing what God is doing in so many people's lives, like seeing even the fire that he's lit with you guys. Like every time young adults come back from Passion and just see like how God has gotten a hold of them and then what comes out of that, that kind of stuff is so important for even my faith. Because there's times, no matter who you are, where it just feels like a desert. And that's why community is so important, because while I'm going through a personal desert, it may be raining on somebody else. And so that person is actually sustaining me too. Mm-hmm. I've got a drought, but I'm getting a little bit of rain from what God's doing over there. And then that's the importance of like sharing your story with people, is just God is moving and doing incredible things all the time. And if we're not telling people what he's doing, if we're not able to share that because we're afraid, or whatever it might look like, we're really depriving other people of some faith. Like, sharing of testimony builds faith in people, and we've got to be able to do that for each other. And we've got to be able to carry each other. When my faith is low, and Holly will say this even on Sundays, she comes in some Sundays and she's like, I've had a bad weekend. Like, just life happens. And I'm coming in and I'm kind of empty. And that's why that worship leadership team is so important, because then we go, okay, we're stepping up, and we'll kind of step in place of some of that. Like, nobody's exempt from that.
Yeah.
And so I've learned about what heaven on earth can look like and feel like, and what the family of God can look like here on earth. That's what I've learned, I think, the most over these 10 years. And it's incredible. It can be incredible.
Yeah. I'm excited to get this out to the people. You kind of shared a bit of your early life. I think it can touch maybe some parents with kids going through stuff like that. Yeah. Show there's hope. I mean, you've grown
for sure
a lot.
For sure. Yeah. And that's happened before. I've shared before, like a long time ago on Father's Day, and that's exactly what happens. Is there's a lot of parents who come up and go, I just need to know that, like, this part's rough, but I need to know that on the other side that something can be okay. And I think that's good. But we all have those things, right? We all have those things that we can be hope for in other people. And so you got to keep sharing that hope.
Mm-hmm. What are you personally in right now with God? Scriptures, books?
Yeah, somebody just asked me this yesterday.
Sweet.
So I'm kind of primed for this one. Me and my wife and my family have been kind of leaning into, have you guys ever heard of John Mark Comer at all?
No.
I've heard the name.
He did a book. He used to be a pastor out, I think, in Portland, but he's an author as well.
Should get him on.
And hey, go for it. Doesn't hurt to ask. He's incredible. But he wrote a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And so my wife's been going through that. And at the same time, he took a sabbatical for a year and then started to do this thing called Practicing the Way. And it's all about what, like, spiritual formation and discipline looks like for us now. And so part of that, he does one of these circles or whatever they call them, I can't remember, on Sabbath, on, like, taking a day, setting that aside and going, I've got to draw some boundaries on this, because we just get so numb to the busyness of life. And God has created us with some sort of natural order and progression and some natural rhythms, and one of those is rest. And so it's a really good practice. Sabbath is just of work really hard for 6 days and then rest on that seventh day. And don't only rest, but delight. Like, take time to really, really delight in what life has and what God has given you. Delight so that you can go back and work a really, really hard 6 days again. And that's a natural rhythm that we're built with. And what we end up doing is, instead of having this time of rest and delight so we can work really hard, we end up lying to ourselves and just being plateaued the whole time. Mm-hmm. So we've been practicing some Sabbath things and trying to eliminate and make space for God inside of some of that. And we've got some other people who are doing that too, that we've shared some time with. So that, and then he does one on prayer, and then they're currently going through one on fasting too. So I'm really just kind of in this, for like the last 6 months of really trying to dig in to spiritual formation and what does that look like, and how do I practice my faith, not only in the sharing of story and hope, but what are some disciplines? You know, people think about them as reading your Bible and, oh yeah, I probably should pray too, although I'm not that good at it. And really that's all they think about. But rather, like, creating Sabbath, creating space for God as a discipline, prayer, yes, as a discipline, and fasting as a discipline, rather than like, well, I really want that thing, so now I'm going to fast for a little bit. So maybe if I fast on top of it, God will answer it. Instead of like fasting being this holistic, and this is what I'm finding for me, my physical health and my spiritual health are connected for me. So when I'm not doing well spiritually, I eat like garbage because food is a comfort for me. I eat like garbage. I get lethargic. I sit on the couch a lot. I tend to get into longer sessions of video games. I like playing video games. It's not a bad thing. But how long I spend with them becomes longer. But spiritually, when I'm doing well, then I automatically want to take care of my physicality too. And that may not be true for everybody, but those are so connected with me that as soon as I start to notice like I'm just grabbing chocolate all the time, I go, whoa, something is up also spiritually. And that has rung true 100%.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're connected?
I think because, the Bible talks about our bodies being a temple, and it's the dwelling house of God now. Yeah. It used to be a physical location, but now God in us. And so I think, how could they not be connected? Like how could the Holy Spirit dwelling in me, and when I'm not feeling well spiritually, how could that not affect me physically? Because I'm a temple. That's at least how I look at it.
No,
theologically, sure. I don't know how that works itself out, and I'm sure that somebody might have problems with it.
Have to take care of the temple, which
you have to.
It's quite obvious that being lazy and eating chocolate isn't. Well,
doesn't feel like a great use of time in excess, right?
Yeah,
chocolate
exactly.
is great. I'm a chocolate lover. I love chocolate. It's good. But anything in excess, and it's really me trying to numb myself and take care of myself and not letting God do that.
Exactly.
Too. So
yep.
That's where it comes. That's where the tie is for me.
Which almost can be idolizing that stuff.
Oh, totally. Well, and there's so many things, speaking of idols, there's so many things that we think are good for us that can become idols, and but they could even be Christian things.
Like self-care?
Like anytime we elevate even maybe a spiritual practice above Jesus himself, we start to make that thing an idol. We start to make some of the ways that we practice things idols. Family is a really, really good biblical thing. And you definitely should take care of them and train them up in the ways of the Lord. But I've seen people idolize family, and family becomes the thing that they're putting above God. And they're like, well, sure, yeah, God's there, but like my family becomes more important. And it's just trying to reorient that all the time. So there are some good things that, like, family is an idol and can be an idol if you have the wrong perspective on it. If those things get out of order, which happens all the time. I'm constantly trying to remember the order and then reorder and reprioritize.
And I think a lot of people thinking, and me included, could think, well, family's a good idol. But I mean, anything above God is not
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And again, it's not even that like family is a bad thing.
Not at all.
It's just when the order shifts.
Yep.
So a family that is pursuing Christ together, that's ideal. And you want that, and you want to delight in that, and you want to delight in your family. And I have 2 girls. I want to protect them, and they are very important to me. Jesus is that much more important, and because he's so important, and they see that, then hopefully I'm directing them towards him and going like, yeah, follow me and imitate me as I imitate Christ, but focus on Christ, not me.
And I think, too, let's go to like the relationship side of the family, the wife and husband. If your wife told you, Elijah, I love God more than you, that'd probably delight you more than the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out I go, yeah, me too.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah. That's the ideal. That doesn't always play itself out, but that's the ideal. And I think we always at least have to have a goal to aim towards, right?
Yeah. So, it's hard. Sure. It's hard for it to play out the ideal way.
It is. But life is never how you imagine it. And each step that you take, it'll throw you curveballs. And the older I've gotten, the more I understand what it means to rely on the Lord. And I'll understand that more in 40 years, if I make it that long, than I do now. You never know, man. You never know. I've always said, like,
We taking bets?
a
Or?
good 74. I'm okay with that.
Jeez. I'm okay with letting God decide, but
Well, sure. I'm not going to take matters into my own hands, but I feel like
74. We're done.
All right,
sure
Elijah.
once I get there, I'm sure that I'll go. No, I can go longer.
Jeez. All right.
But you never know.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts.
Any questions?
Final concerns? And
I have some. Yeah, actually, I do have some questions for you guys.
Boy.
Yeah, I feel like Maureen was asking you guys all the time too.
Wait till Jonathan's episode. He asked us a lot of questions.
Did he? Yeah.
On the spot.
I'll be looking for it.
That was difficult.
First question for you guys is, why do you hate Noah Khan so much?
We don't.
I don't know who that. I really don't know who that is.
Okay, because I've got you Ashley, and I've got you Abby. Noah Khan, represent.
Just because we don't listen.
Oh, before the episode, he goes, I'm wearing this because you guys hate. And I'm like, dude, that's like a Hawaii shirt. What are you talking about, bro?
No.
We don't hate him. We just don't listen to him that much.
I don't know who that is.
It's fair. It's fair. One day.
I know a couple of his songs.
One day you'll know.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I prefer worship music.
I prefer worship music.
Holier than thou.
Look, I live in this world, and there are days I don't prefer worship music. That was obviously a joke question. But question number 2, because I watched a lot of these podcasts, follow up to the Noah Khan question, there was also but Morgan Wallen. What's the best track off of his new album?
This is the worldliness coming out of me.
I haven't listened to his new album yet.
And that's messed up.
Oh, okay. I appreciate your honesty.
He's more of a Morgan Wallen fan than I am.
I love Morgan Wallen.
Okay.
I would have him on that podcast.
And so your answer is?
It's called Ain't That Some. And
Yep.
I don't condone that song by any means, but it's catchy. It's good. I also like 98 Braves. That's basic. However,
98 Braves is a good one.
It's a good one.
That's a good one.
It's basic. What's the one? I Deserve a Drink. That's really worldly, but catchy.
Look, it's Morgan Wallen. It's country music. There's going to be some worldliness in there.
There's also some biblical songs, like in the Bible.
If that's the one I'm thinking of, because I don't know the titles that well, that one's terrible.
Oh yeah. I don't.
Just because it says in the Bible doesn't mean
It's like God's Plan by Drake.
Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't.
They're your favorites. It's fine. It's fine. I also said that Metallica brought me to worship music. It's fine.
Yeah. We're not perfect.
I think Tennessee Number is that one.
That's a good one.
I think that's.
I like Tennessee Fan better though.
Okay.
But that's okay.
For you guys, as you look at the landscape of what corporate church is, where are the places that you think that we could grow? And you don't even have to talk about First Church specifically, but what do you think? Like, I think this is kind of missing, or where could the church grow? And then, because we don't always want to dwell on the negative, where's the thing that you feel like the church is really doing well? And again, I'm not specifically talking about us, but like church in America. What do you think is being done well, and you would like to see more of in that space?
One thing that I think that the church could do better at, not just, obviously, like you said, not just First Church, but I think we need to do a lot better job of meeting people where they are and loving them where they are. Mm-hmm. I think so much of Christianity is trying to beat God into people's head at some churches, and not just meeting people where they are and loving them where they are and showing them God's love, and then eventually working that into conversations about God and church and all that stuff. It's more, I think we do a bad job of, well, you need to come to church because you're a sinner. Like, I think it's too harsh sometimes. We need to have an urgency, but we don't need to be harsh about it to everybody. We need to meet people where they are and love them where they are and show them God's love. And
it's a hard balance.
Yeah,
I think sometimes.
I mean, I struggle with it sometimes too.
Yeah, because I think the tension lies in, I want to love people where they are, but I also don't want people to stay where they are. Yeah. So what does that look like to invite people into the person of Jesus? Because we can swing too far the other way, where we go, I don't know, like what works for you, what, you know, that age old thing. But like, no, I want to sit with you at the bar if that's what it takes. Like I don't want you to have to clean yourself up to come to church. So I will go there and I will meet you there. But at the same time, like eventually by being around them, you're gonna find out I can't stop talking about Jesus, and I can't stop talking about the hope in the life that I found in that. And so at some point I'm gonna invite you into that. Now it is their choice whether or not they want to come in deeper to some of that, but yeah, I'm gonna invite you in. So it is a tricky balance though.
And I think the church doesn't just fall on the harsh side. Sometimes we're too lax about it too. I think. Yeah. I think it's the finding the balance of the perfect middle versus being on one extreme or the other.
Well, and the problem comes when you say that this is the way to do it. Yeah. Once you say this is the set way to do it, because we're dealing with people. Everybody's a person and everybody's different. And so there is no one right answer on how somebody comes along in that journey. But I agree. I think that we could definitely do better at just going, I see where you're at. And instead of trying to give the answer right away, the first thing people want a lot of times is just to be recognized and want to be acknowledged and want to know that somebody sees that they're hurting. And then we can have a conversation. Yeah. But if you can't recognize that, then I don't actually care what you think. I think Eugene Peterson, in a thing I watched one time, he said, I was always so upset at the people who asked how my soul was, but they didn't know my name. I was like, that's probably a pretty good way to look at it.
Yeah, that's pretty valid.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? What could the church do better?
I have two.
Bring it.
All right, my first one, this is pretty simple. I won't elaborate much, but I think as a church body, sometimes we can put staff or pastors kind of on pedestals, and I think sometimes we need to realize, hey, they're human, they're not perfect. Yeah. Just because we have a podcast doesn't mean we're perfect.
It's the natural tendency of a platform, though, right?
Yeah.
As soon as there's a platform, people then go, "Oh, now I'm watching you."
Yep, we're pushing Christianity, we're pushing Christian community, so then we have to be perfect. Or I'm up on stage, preaching to the congregation. I need to be perfect, but in reality, we're not, and that's actually a beautiful thing. But
it has to be. Yeah. It has to be the beautiful thing. The beautiful thing is like we don't have it figured out. And that's where grace gets to rush in and fill all that up. And that's, again, I don't want to sin so that grace may abound, but also I got to fully embrace grace. And what does it look like to be both a sinner redeemed by the work on the cross, but also a co-heir with Christ at the same time? And that's a complex, paradoxical thing. But that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And so now we're not perfect. And I would be leery of anybody who ever claimed to be, of like, oh, no, I think I've got this down.
No, you don't.
Clearly you don't.
You don't. And you lose people, right? You lose people. As soon as you start to even give off the air of that, even if you don't say those words, but you start to
have an ego
and this thing, people go, oh, okay, I don't think that's true. So I like that one. Yeah, that's a common answer.
And then kind of my thought behind hitting up Zach, like, let's make a podcast about this, was I was at Grace Gathering in New Haven, and they had like a potluck after service. Yeah. They have a lot of tight-knit community. Yeah. And First Church is beautiful. We have good community, but I'm like, we don't know each other that well. Yeah. A lot of people may not have known you were on staff even. They're like, oh, he just is on worship team.
That's pretty common, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. But I wish, this is specifically First Church, to be honest. Yeah. I wish we were a bit closer, but then we're also a bigger number. Yeah. So that's harder to do. So that was kind of the goal of this, is to be able to push to more people.
Yeah.
Digital media is a beautiful thing. It can also be a horrible thing.
If you misuse it, it can be.
Yeah, so we're trying to use what's been used very worldly most times for good, and that was kind of our mission behind this.
Which I think is why I've been such a big fan of this and what you guys are doing. Is one of the things that I want to do in my time here is, how do you take a big church and make it feel small? And the reality is, I have a lot of questions or a lot of conversations with people. Back that up, to be quite honest. I remember, I think I finally introduced myself to your parents a year ago. I've been here 10 years. And a year ago, I met them. They were helping out in the kitchen on a Sunday morning.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. And that was like the first time I even made the effort to go meet some people that have been here since I've been here, longer than I've been here. And so even I fall into that trap. But what I hear so often from people who come into the church is that, to our church, is, I like it, but I feel like I'm on the outside. And that's not any one person's fault. That's just the natural thing that happens after years and years and decades of community with each other. It's hard to break into that. So you take that kind of idea inside of a small group or whatever, and you take that with a church that's been around since 1885 or something like that. Like, we're over 100 years old. That's a long-standing tradition, and there are people who've grown up and been at this church for 70 years, not this building, but this community. That's hard to break into. And so I agree. I think one of the things I would like for our church to grow in is to keep an eye out, even on Sunday mornings. Like, have your group of people that you want to catch up with, but always keep your eyes out for those other. There are other people there. They come every week. There are new people in this building every week, and you're not going to know who's new and not. And there's so many reasons why we wouldn't go out of our way to meet somebody new. But just take the risk. Like, take the risk, and don't say, "Hey, are you new here?" Like, one of the things you can do is just, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, and I've been here for a long time, but I don't think I've met you. How long have you been here?" And that invites that conversation, because if you haven't met them, then they definitely haven't met you, and they don't know how long you've been there, right? Yeah. And so then you find out if they're new or if they've been there 10 years. But the beautiful thing about this church, and I never want this to leave, is it's a multi-generational church. Yeah. It's not just a young person church. And I long for a day. I love carry-ins. I love all of that. So let's have them every week if we could.
Oh, yeah.
I long for a day where we gather on a Sunday afternoon, and it's not even a second thought of having to go sit. Like, you look at a table, and there's a couple in their 60s, and there's a family with 2 kids, and there's a single person, and they're all at the table together. And that wasn't because we had to like arrange it in that way, but we just naturally care for each other, that it's just one big family, because this is the best family to be a part of. Yeah. The church family is a really good family. But we got to invite more people into that. Yeah. We can't just let people sit on the outside. I didn't know you went to Grace Gathering. You visited, I assume, right?
Yeah, a few times. Addie, my girlfriend's in Fort Wayne for school.
Yeah.
So she wanted to get a little bit connected when she's not back here.
Yeah.
We went and visited because my friend Grant, shout out Grant, not listening.
Holy cow. The number of shout outs on this podcast, by the way, are absurd.
We haven't had, that was the first one.
It's okay. Anyways.
not this one. I just mean in general. You guys are constantly shouting out.
It's because we love community, man. Hit us up if you want to shout it out.
Our first episode that we ever recorded, we did like 4 times. We had to redo one because I shouted out the gas station. That's how bad it was at the beginning.
Grant, my friend Grant.
Shout out Grant.
His dad, Pastor Norman, is like in charge of the 3 campuses.
Yeah.
My friends attend there.
Yeah.
It's our friends, Addie and I, Zach's friends as well. So checked it out a few times. It's an awesome place. Sometimes it's cool to
it's great.
hear from new voices, which
For sure.
is awesome. Why we have Joel in now.
Yep. Joel's doing a good
but
job.
just seeing new churches, new community, it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are afraid of that notion of like, oh, but I went here and that was really cool too. Because we're fickle, like we're creatures that go like, that looks shiny, so we go to the shiny thing. But I think the church gets scared sometimes of that. But we always encourage people, go experience other churches, because one, you might find something that actually fits you a little bit better. Like churches, just like anything else, just have natural bents towards certain things. There are churches that are really, really big into missions. Find a church, if that's you and you have a heartbeat for that, find a church that's really into that. It hurts when people leave. This is a family for me. But I want them to grow in however God is growing them. Yeah. And whatever brings them closer to him is fine. Try out different churches. Sometimes it just even helps with like, oh, I don't know, I don't like this, I don't like this. And then you go somewhere else and you go, oh, okay, well, they're doing that too, and maybe that's not a big deal. It's the whole mountains on a molehill things again, where you go, oh, maybe that's just not even something to complain about. They all do this way. Maybe that's just a church thing or whatever. So, yeah. And we know some people over at Grace Gathering.
Oh, sweet.
Craig Eckwright. I think he might be leading worship at some other campuses with them, because they're 3 campuses. Yep. But he helped with Rock for the Rock. He's a great guy. We know him for a long time now too. So yeah, we know a lot of worship people in Fort Wayne. So
Yeah.
I like Grace Gathering a lot.
It's a cool community.
Yeah.
That worship community.
Yeah. It's the cool kids club.
But yeah, and I'm also not saying that we have a bad community here at First Church.
No.
It's just difficult when you have a larger amount of people, and
it totally is.
That's a given.
And that's like, you know, the number one thing we tell people is, if you want to find people, start by serving, because serving automatically puts you in with a smaller group of people. It's just intimidating. People also like to come to big churches just to escape. Like, people want to disappear for a while, and that's okay too. But there are times where they try to get into some of those groups, or they try to serve, and then they're like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm not able to connect with those people. And so it's okay to, like, we're doing okay, but it's also okay to challenge our people and go like, we could do better though. Like, I hear it enough that I know we can do better, and I can do better. And so, like, what does it look like to take the risk of asking somebody their name, asking how long they've been there, and then maybe next week doing that again, and then going, what? Hey, just come over for lunch.
Let's go to El Dorado.
Let's go to CJ's, like, whatever it is, right?
The Nook.
The Nook.
Anywhere.
The
Square.
Like, yeah, you don't even have to invite them into your house, but like, you can go to a restaurant, but hey, let's go grab lunch. I want to get to know you more. And then, like, that's a risk just with your peers. And then going beyond that and going, that person from the outside, again, I look older than I am a lot of times, but they look twice my age. I wonder if I could ask that same thing of them. What does it look like to go to lunch with somebody who's twice my age? Yeah. And one of the things I'm learning the more that I'm involved in church is that there's always this, like, weird disconnect between young people and old people, and we think that there's this tension. And as I'm starting to get older, I think I'm starting to understand a little bit of the tension, which is I feel 26 in my brain. Like, if you were to ask me how old I am, I have to stop to say 33 because I don't feel that age. And that's true as you get older. Like, yes, your body hurts and things like that, but mentally you're like, I feel like I'm 45. And so then you're like, why am I not included in some of these things? And then I'm around young people and I'm reminded how old I am. You guys, in the last podcast, you were talking about the photo directory and these really old pictures, and I was like, oh, that wasn't that long ago to me.
How long ago was that?
It was one of the first things that happened when I started here. So
10 years.
It is like
grade.
It is like 10 years old, but 10 years doesn't feel that old. And when Josh was like, "Yeah, so we found some really old pictures," I was like, "Oh, hey, hold on now."
Well, when 10 years is half of your life, that is a long time.
It's a whole different perspective, right?
Not even half my life. Wow.
So I would love to, though.
That is half my life. I'm 20.
Not for me.
Goodness.
Continue.
Anyway,
Who cares?
Goodness. Let me go put on some. Let me go take some Advil. Jeez, that's how I feel right now. I'm taking medication.
All right.
I'm so old. my joints are already hurting.
13 years is not much older.
No, it's not. But I do like, that's another gap I would love to see bridged. Is there's a generation of people who age wise are really, really advanced in years, 60 plus, but they want to know young people just as much as they want to know people their own age. But we can't bridge that gap. And so again, risking it and going, hey, we would never be found in the same circles outside of this place, but Christ unites us together and puts us together. And so that's valuable to me. And so I want to get to know who you are. Mm-hmm. It's scary though. I'm an introvert, and so like that is the most terrifying thing for me.
You have to kick a little bit of pride away too. If you're a younger guy,
absolutely.
I'm not too cool for older crowd. I could gain a lot from a conversation.
You absolutely can. Yeah. And that's like, that's one thing for young people that I would encourage, because I needed it when I was young too, is find somebody who you respect, who is on in years, and it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years, whatever. Find somebody and intentionally ask them like, hey, I see some things in you that I want to grow in, and I want to be like that. So will you mentor me? And that is invaluable. The church needs to get better at that too. Because there is so much wisdom and so many things that people have walked through, and you can just avoid a lot of hard things if you just even talk with them. And they're like, I walked that and that was really hard. And you might go, I'm still choosing it.
Yeah.
Cause we're young and dumb, and we go, no, but it could be different with us. I'm putting myself in your category now. You see how I did that? We're young and dumb.
Hey. Not wrong.
So what is good about the church then? Because I don't want to say all what's bad.
I have one specifically for our church. I think that our church does a really good job of loving the youth well. Through our children's ministries, our youth ministries, just all of that. I mean, I grew up in this church. I went through the children's ministry and the youth ministry. I felt really loved. Yeah. And then just seeing the people and the people that serve, just how much they love the kids. Like, my dad's been serving in the children's ministry for 16, 17 years, almost as long as I've been alive. And it's just cool to see his love for the next generation and see that through so many different people. I like how we love our youth well and try to grow up young disciples in Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say we have a great student ministry. It's changed a lot over the years.
It definitely has, yeah.
But even when I was a student to now serving the students, it's been awesome. Not going to steal Zach's, though. I would say, I know I touched on, I would like our community to be a little bit tighter, but I think our community is very, very tight when things go, like when trials happen or during hard times. We really, really rally together. Yeah. We come together, pray together. Yeah. I mean, we've done like prayer, what's the word, vigils?
Prayer there's like certain, prayer services, like prayer
people
whatever. People
that are sick, hurt, accidents, whatever. Yeah. We really come together. There's meals going to people. Like, we really love. And I would just, so that's what I would like to see grow, because I know it's there.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most effective things that the church has ever done in history is it spreads when people are the hands and feet of Jesus and they're running to the places that other people are fleeing. So like even in the early church, when disease would break out and everybody's fleeing, Christians run in and go, yeah, we're taking care of our families, but we're taking care of yours too, and we know that the outcome of this is probably dying. That sort of sacrificial love and being the hands and feet of Jesus made it explode. It made the church what it is now. And so, yeah, we got to keep doing that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Good answers, guys.
Thank you.
I think it's important to have those conversations though. Like what is it that we are doing okay? Like what is it that the church is not doing well? And then not just criticizing the church, because that's what I did for a long time. Especially in my like early coming back to church years. I would go, well, it's got this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. Not criticizing, but like acknowledging the weaknesses, but then stepping in and going, so I want to help fix it.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, this podcast is one of those things where you go, I just want more community. I want people to know who each other is. And, me and Abby Price don't really run in the same circles, but we're Noah Kahn fans. And I watched a whole podcast on her.
And you can...
And some weird RA stuff.
You can go up to her now at service or whatever, wherever you see her.
Yeah, right.
And have an instant, oh, we were late on this. And that goes back to your, oh, hey, I'm Elijah. How long have you attended here?
Right.
And then go back to them next week and be like, have you listened to this song or whatever? It doesn't have to be anything deep. But it grows community.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I was confronted with early on is just by the nature of being on the stage, like people feel like they know you and you don't know them. So that's one of those things that like, I still don't know a lot of people at this church. I just don't. And so I could be at Walmart and they know a lot of, I share my story on stage. I sing on stage. I'm up there a lot. They know so much about me and I don't even know their name. And that's a hard bridge to gap sometimes, or gap to bridge.
Bridge to gap.
Whatever.
Gap.
Bringing this to here is
Gap
what I
to
mean.
bridge.
Yeah. So
Sweet.
no other questions. This has been a long one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We are elevated in time right now.
Yeah, we got to wrap up. We got our next guest walking in soon.
But it's been fun, guys.
Yeah, thank you a lot for coming on.
No problem.
If you guys want to reach out to Elijah, feel free to comment. We'll get you guys connected.
Don't text me. Apparently, I'm a millennial in that aspect. I hate texting, so.
No, I honestly hate texting too. I'm a call guy. I call often.
But you're right. If anytime, I'm always available for anything. So
yeah, I mean that's the whole point of having people on is to connect and grow. Yeah. So, thank you guys for listening, watching.
Before we go, real quick.
Oh my gosh, the final question.
What's your dream vacation? We ask this to every guest. I don't know if you've been to the end of the episode.
We almost forgot.
I'll be honest.
Final question.
No. Dream vacation. I already know this. I want to go, those over the water huts.
Bungalows?
Yeah, the bungalow things where it's like blue water and you're just like there. I want to do that. I looked into it one time and the one that I looked at was like $15,000. So that ain't happening on its own.
That happens in this question. You're good. Who you going with? Family?
In this instance, it would just be me and my wife. That would be amazing. Because it seems so peaceful, and I like that idea. So that's the dream.
Yeah,
I would do a lot of trips, but that's the one where.
Sweet.
Yeah,
that's
so
simple,
whatever scratch offs I have to play.
That's the most to the point answer we've ever had.
Yeah.
What other answers are you getting?
Well, the people
I want to hop all over.
I'm not like hating on any of them, but like they have so many in mind that they just like keep listing and listing.
Well, sure. I mean, I had to stop myself from the other two that I have, but that's the one that's at the top of the list. Sorry, if this doesn't exist currently, but if we somehow can make it to the moon, I totally would do that instead.
Sure.
I want to travel in space, so that'd be the vacation, but that ain't happening. So let's make it a little bit more realistic with the $15,000 vacation.
Sweet.
That's the answer.
All right. Yeah, like we said, thank you for coming on and spending your time with us. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Once again, feel free to comment. Please let us know how you like this, what we can do better, or if you'd like to be on. Our next guest, actually, hit us up to be on, which is exciting. So yeah, thank you for listening, watching the Outreach Project. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Say it.
Say peace.
Peace.